Welcome to class. We're going to be looking at Kennedy's inaugural address, starting with paragraph 1. We talked a little bit about this yesterday in most classes. Looking at this one, we see things in here like symbolizing an end as well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. And so here we have some parallel structure. We also have, for I've sworn before you an almighty God, we have this reference to faith. The same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago. Here we have a reference to the forefathers and tradition. Also in this paragraph, you probably found symbolizing, same and solemn, celebration, and signifying. So you found several examples of alliteration as well. In paragraph 2, he begins talking about the world is very different now. For man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And so when we look at this, the power to abolish all forms of human life, it's a euphemism for the atomic bomb and nuclear weapons. We've got parallel structure between all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought, this phrase right here is another reference to forefathers and tradition, are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God, is an allusion to the Declaration of Independence. And the phrase, all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And so that's referring to the Declaration of Independence. We dare not forget today that we are the heirs of that first revolution. When we talk about first revolution, we're talking about the American Revolution. So again, a reference to the forefathers. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike. Did you notice the alliteration there? Friend and foe alike. We've also got parallel structure, time and place, friend and foe. That the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans. Well, there's no actual torch. This is a metaphor. Born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage. So what we have here is we have born in this century, we have a verb and a prepositional phrase. Tempered by war, a verb and a prepositional phrase. Disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, we have a verb and a prepositional phrase. Proud of our ancient heritage, we have a verb and a prepositional phrase. All of this is parallel structure. And unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world. So we have has always been committed as a reference to tradition. But then we have this other statement, committed here today and around the world. And so that would be an example of hope. For the future. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, in order to assure the survival and the success of liberty. So you've got alliteration in this part, but you also have pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe. You also have parallel structure in that section. This we pledge, and more. And so here, the pieces that you found were probably more limited. In this part, you have words like pledge, which would be loaded language. Other examples of loaded language would be this piece where it says the survival and the success of liberty. Again, that's all loaded language. The next section you would look at would be to those old allies whose cultural and spiritual origins we share, we pledge the loyalty of faithful friends. So in this section, some of the things you might have noticed were talking about pledge and loyalty, again, repetition and loaded language. Cultural and spiritual origins, there's our reference to faith. And then faithful friends, we have alliteration. United, there is little we cannot do in a host of cooperative ventures. Divided, there is little we can do, for we dare not meet a powerful challenge at odds and split asunder. So we have the idea of split asunder, which is again loaded language. We have united and divided, and that is assonance. We've got repetition of the idea of cannot and can in that paragraph. To those states whom we welcome to the ranks of the free, we pledge our word in one form of colonial control shall not have passed away merely to be replaced by a far more iron tyranny. And again, iron tyranny, lovely loaded language. We've got ranks of the free and iron tyranny that are both examples of metaphor. We shall not always expect them to find them supporting our view, but we shall always hope to find them strongly supporting their own freedom, and to remember that in the past, those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside, and we talked about that metaphor yesterday, where the tiger is that abuse of power and dictatorship that it ultimately destroyed. To those peoples in the huts and villages across the globe struggling to break the bonds of mass misery, well, we have alliteration again. We also have lovely imagery. We've got that repetition of pledge. We pledge our best efforts to help them help themselves. Repetition again. For whatever period is required. Not because the communists may be doing it. How's that for loaded language? Not because we seek their votes. Repetition here of not because, but because it is right. Powerful language, loaded language. If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. And here we have cannot help the many who are poor, cannot save the few who are rich. Parallel structure between those two. In this last paragraph on this page, to our sister republics south of our border, that would be Mexico and Central America. We offer a special pledge. Ooh, there's that word again. to convert our good words into good deeds, repetition and parallel structure. In a new alliance for progress, alliance would be loaded language, to assist free men and free governments, parallel structure and repetition of the idea of free. In casting off the chains of poverty, all right, that's a metaphor, and that is imagery. But this peaceful revolution of hope, oh wait, there's optimism, cannot become the prey of hostile powers. Another metaphor, more imagery. Let our neighbors know that we shall join with them to oppose aggression or subversion anywhere in the Americas. And let every other power know that this hemisphere intends to remain the master of its own house. And again, metaphor and imagery. You should hear repetition at this point. We head to those peoples in the Hudson villages, to our sister republics, to that world assembly. So we have some repetition here at the beginning of each paragraph. Through the world assembly of sovereign states, we have alliteration, the United Nations, our last best hope in an age where the instruments of war, and again, we're talking about nuclear power, atomic bombs, have far outpaced instruments of peace. We have repetition and parallel structure here. We renew our pledge of support to prevent it from becoming merely a forum for invective, loaded language. To strengthen its shield, we've got alliteration, strengthen its shield of the new and the weak, but this is also a metaphor. There's not an actual shield. And to enlarge the area in which its writ may run. And we've got alliteration. Because writ, even though it starts with the W is silent. So what you hear is the R, so writ may run. Finally, to those nations, and again, repetition, who would make themselves our adversary, we offer not a pledge, but a request. So here's that word again. We've got that repetition of pledge. And now it's a request that both sides begin anew the quest for peace, loaded language, before the dark powers of destruction, unleashed by science, again, nuclear power, engulf all humanity in planned or accidental self-destruction. Lots of examples of loaded language here. We dare not tempt them with weakness, for only when our arms are sufficient beyond doubt can we be certain beyond doubt that they will never be employed. So some things we need to know here. This was there was a question about why the arms race. This is about the arms race. Why do we need to keep stockpiling weapons when we can already blow up the world multiple times? Well, here's why. For only when our arms, our weapons, are sufficient beyond doubt, so only when we have enough weapons without a doubt, can we be certain beyond doubt, I got some repetition there, that they will never, they being the weapons, will never be employed means used. So we need more weapons so no one will question if we need them, or if we have them, if we have enough. So this is about the arms race. We need more weapons so that no one will question, no one being in no other country will question if we have enough. I'm beginning with paragraph 13 here. But neither can two great and powerful groups of nations take comfort from our present course, both sides overburdened by the cost of modern weapons, both rightly alarmed by the steady spread of the deadly atom, yet both racing to alter that uncertain balance of terror that stays the hand of mankind's final war. So in this paragraph, we see two great and powerful groups of nations. Well, this is talking about the communist nations and the free nations. At the time, the U.S. was one of the free nations. Russia would have been one of the main communists. We also see in here both, and both. So we see repetition with the word both. He talks about the steady spread of the deadly atom. And once you've seen the alliteration, then we also know that the steady spread of the deadly atom would also be talking about atomic power or nuclear power again. And we've got to alter that uncertain balance, which is loaded language for sure, as is terror, that stays the hand of mankind's final war. And we're talking about the threat of nuclear war here. And all of those are allusions to nuclear war. So let us begin anew, remembering on both sides, there's that both again, that civility is not a sign of weakness, that sincerity is always subject to proof. Not a sign of weakness, sincerity always subject to proof. You have a noun, verb, adverb, a sign of weakness, which is a noun, and a preposition, and then you have an over here, and then you have the same structure here. So these two clauses become parallel structure. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. And again, you have parallel structure, and you have repetition of the ideas of negotiate and fear. Hopefully, you very quickly noticed let both sides, let both sides, let both sides, let both sides. You picked up on that repetition, I assume. And so then it begins, let's explore what problems unite us instead of belaboring those problems which divide us. And so we have unite and divide. We have assonance occurring here. You also have what problems unite us, belaboring, which would be loaded language, those problems which divide us, and so we've got repetition of the idea of problems. Let both sides for the first time formulate serious and precise, parallel structure, serious and precise proposals. Of course, we have alliteration here, for the inspection and control of arms, and bring the absolute power to destroy other nations. Well, that would be atomic power again. The atomic bomb or nuclear bomb. Under the absolute control of all nations. So we have this idea of absolute power and absolute control, of repetition, and of loaded language. Let both sides seek to invoke the wonders of science instead of its terrors. Again, talking about the atomic bomb. Let us explore the stars, conquer the deserts, eradicate diseases, tap the ocean depths, and encourage the arts and commerce. So here we have parallel structure. We also have a reference here to the space program, to the space race. Conquering the stars. Eradicate diseases. That was when we had all of the vaccines coming in. Tap the ocean depths and encourage the arts and commerce. So all of this is about contemporary. It was what was going on at the time. Let both sides unite to heed in all corners of the earth the command of Isaiah to undo the heavy burden and to let the oppressed go free. Well, we have a quote. They say Isaiah. That is a biblical allusion. Coming from Isaiah We've also got this idea of the oppressed go free, which is very powerful when you consider the civil rights movement. Paragraph 19 then begins, and if a beachhead of cooperation may push back the jungle of suspicion. So here we have imagery and a metaphor. Actually, a couple of metaphors. Beachhead of cooperation, jungle of suspicion. Let both sides, there's that both again, join in creating a new endeavor. Not a new balance of power, but a new world of law. New balance of power, new world of law, parallel structure, where the strong are just and the weak secure. The strong are just, weak secure, and the peace preserved. Parallel structure. All this will not be finished in the first 100 days, nor will it be finished in the first 1,000 days, nor in the life of this administration, nor even perhaps in our lifetime on this planet. But let us begin. Now, if you're not aware, we haven't done it this year, but this part right here, finished in the first 100 days, the 1,000 days, that is an allusion to Washington's inaugural speech, where that same quote was used. But let us begin. In your hand, my fellow citizens, more than in mine, will rest the final success or failure of our course. Since this country was founded, hey, now we're going back to the tradition. Each generation of Americans had been summoned to give testimony to its national loyalty. The graves of young Americans who answered the call to service around the globe. And so we have imagery here, summoned to give testimony. This idea of summoned here is a metaphor. They haven't really been called. All of this paragraph talks about a tradition in America. Now the trumpet summons us again. Again, it's a metaphor, no actual trumpet. Not as a call to bear arms, though arms we need. A little bit of repetition there. Not as a call to battle, though embattled we are. Do you see the parallel structure there between the first part of this and the second? But a call to bear the burden. Ooh, look. Alliteration. Of a long twilight struggle, year in and year out. Rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation. Now, he doesn't tell me where this came from, but I bet I can guess. It is a biblical allusion. A struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. So we got some parallel structure going there. We got lots of loaded language. In enemies, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war. Lots of loaded language going on there. Twilight struggle is another imagery. Then he says, can we forge against these enemies a grand and global alliance? And so again we have grand and global, which is alliteration. North and south, east and west. So we have north and south, east and west, which is parallel structure. That can assure a more fruitful life for all mankind. Will you join in this historic effort? So again, we have this reference to tradition and optimism. We've got rhetorical questions. In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. Lovely imagery here. I do not shrink from this responsibility. Again, lovely imagery. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, and the devotion, parallel structure, which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it, and the glow from that fire will truly light the world. So we have a metaphor here. There's no actual fire. There's no actual light. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. We talked about this piece yesterday as aphorism, because this is the piece that everybody knows. But when we look at these two together, we notice that there is parallel structure here and repetition. And now for that last paragraph. Finally, whether you are citizens of America or citizens of the world, parallel structure again, ask of us the same high standards of strength and sacrifice, got a little alliteration going there, as well as citizens. With a good conscience, our only sure reward. Oh, how positive can we be? With history, the final judge of our deeds, parallel structure, but also optimism. Let us go forth to lead the land we love. Oh, look at all of that. Lots of alliteration. Asking his help and his blessing. A little bit of faith here. Knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. And so he finishes strong with the statement of faith. Now, what you should have noticed is he uses some biblical allusions, but not quite as many, not even close to as many as Lincoln did, and his references to faith are fewer and further between. That reflects a change in American culture between Lincoln's time and the 100 years that became Kennedy's time. You also should notice that there are a lot of references to tradition, which is kind of ironic when you consider that Kennedy was supposed to be such a rebel, and he was supposed to be bringing change. So that makes it a little unusual.